Now, the Hollyland Lark M2 is probably one of the best mini mics that you can get right now. It's affordable, sounds great out of the box, and probably has the best design found on any wireless microphone in my opinion. But now with the new DJI Mic Mini, which actually comes at a lower entry price of $90 for just transmitter and receiver, the M2 has some serious competition. But let's see how it compares in terms of general sound quality, noise cancellation, as well as range and general feature set. But firstly, I want to go over the design of both microphones. I do want to say that the M2 is still the more compact and smaller form factor microphone. It doesn't have a clip, unlike the DJI Mic Mini, so if you do want to clip it onto a shirt rather than using the magnets, that's not an option on the Lark M2 for the time being. But just in terms of the size itself, the Lark M2 being a circular mic has a smaller footprint and is definitely lighter than the DJI mic, weighing only about 9 grams with the magnet itself versus the DJI Mini mic with the magnet and clip attachment is around 14 grams. The weight difference is actually a pretty big deal. As you can see over here, we have the DJI mic attached to my t-shirt with a magnet, and it does flop around a little bit. We can obviously kind of fix that, but it always kind of sags a little bit. It's not as bad as like a Rode Wireless Pro or anything like that, but certainly compared to the Lark M2, which is very light by itself and works great with the magnet. On top of that, you can also rotate this mic to get exactly where you want the microphone pickup pattern to be. They're both omnidirectional, but if you want to adjust that, that's really easy to do. You can just twist it and it kind of gets right into place, versus that is not as easier to do, and you are going to also twist your shirt in the process of adjusting the microphone position. So definitely from a design perspective, the Lark M2 is better. On top of that, if you want something unobtrusive and kind of stealth, you can cover this with a black sticker or one of their cool stickers that comes inside the box to give your videos a little bit of an extra flair. But if you want to be kind of incognito with your microphone, the M2 is better at that as well. Furthermore, in terms of cases, you can also see that the Hollyland case is smaller and more lightweight, coming at around 141 grams with one receiver and 2 of the transmitters, versus the DJI system with the 2 transmitters and single receiver comes at around 189 grams. The DJI case also has a lock button which will lock your microphones into place, versus we're using a strong magnet on the Hollyland case. I don't think the Hollyland case will come open accidentally, but if you want that added security, you do have that advantage on the DJI side. On top of that, you do get more charge cycles with the DJI case. The Lark case will get you around 2 more battery cycles on the transmitter and receiver, versus you're looking about 3.6 times charge cycles on the DJI side. Now moving forward, let's talk about connectivity. On the Lark M2, you always need to be tied to a receiver. The wireless transmission cannot be broadcasted through Bluetooth since it doesn't have it, so you always need to use either its dedicated 3.5mm receiver or the receivers designed for smartphones, either enabled with a Lightning or USB-C connection. Unlike the mini mic from DJI, which can be used only with a Bluetooth connection, so you can directly connect the mini mic to your Android smartphone or iPhone without any receivers needed. Now, there are some drawbacks to just using Bluetooth only. Firstly, you're not going to get the best range. I wouldn't go past 15-20 feet using the Bluetooth connection. On top of that, the noise cancellation is on, as well as the auto limiting. It will also be on, so you can't turn those features off. In addition to that, you can't actually use the default iPhone camera app. For whatever reason, the Bluetooth microphone only doesn't really work with that app. You're going to need to either use either the Blackmagic camera app or the Video Pro app or any iOS or Android app that accepts a external Bluetooth microphone. Now, there are some other ways to connect the DJI Mini mic, either through DJI's own dedicated camera, whether it be the Pocket 3 or the Action camera, and you don't need to use a receiver in that instance. But if you want to hook it up to a regular iPhone, Android, or any 3.5mm camera, you can use their dedicated receiver, which comes with the mic and connected directly, and that way you have the most stable wireless signal as well as the best range. Now, both dedicated receivers are fairly similar in terms of functionality. Both have a global volume dial for your mic input gain levels. Unfortunately, you can't control the levels on both mics independently. They both go up and down together on both receivers. On top of that, you have some LED status indicator lights for your microphone connections and some buttons here and there. I do like the overall design of the DJI Mini receiver a little bit better. The dial itself is smaller, it clicks into place, and you're not going to accidentally bump into it and adjust your volume of your mics accidentally, which can happen on the Hollyland receiver, which has a large loose dial which you can easily hit accidentally and adjust your volume up or down. Now moving forward, in terms of the overall controls and feature sets, from a software perspective, certainly DJI has an edge up there. If you take a look at the DJI Mimo app, which allows you to control both the transmitter and receiver, on the receiver end you have quite a lot more functionality. You can obviously turn your noise cancellation on and off. You can set it to 2 basic settings, either strong or basic. You also have channel modes for mono and stereo for the 2 microphones. You can also introduce a safety track in mono mode. So if you have one microphone connection, one level of the stereo track will be set to your normal gain level, and another one will be set a little bit lower, so you have that safety assurance. If anything clips, you have that lower volume level on the same audio track. You also get a low pass filter or a low cut filter. You also have auto on and off, so the receiver will actually detect a signal from the 3.5mm headphone jack even and turn itself on or off. You also get similar functionality on the transmitter. If it doesn't receive any kind of signal from the receiver itself, it will turn itself off in 15 minutes if you have power save mode turned on. Furthermore, you also have clip control, which is a volume limiter, so this will automatically adjust your volume in the scenario that your audio clips on the top end. Furthermore, you also get independent controls for the transmitter. You can turn your auto off or power saving mode on or off. You also can select whether you want your noise cancellation to be toggled on or off using the power button, and you can turn off the LED indicator if you find it distracting. Now on the Hollyland Lark M2, the control interface on the app side is fairly limited. You basically have some very simple controls for turning your noise cancellation on or off. You also do get 2 settings for either strong or weak noise cancellation, and you get volume levels settings, either low, medium, or high, and that's pretty much about it. Now moving forward, let's talk about battery life. On paper, it looks like the DJI Mini Mic has more battery life. For the transmitter itself, you're looking about 11.5 hours, and the receivers will get you about 10.5 hours. So usable range is at least 10 hours according to DJI. Now with the case, you pretty much get 48 hours of total runtime, which is definitely quite a bit for most shooters out there. That's basically combining both microphones and the runtime of the receiver itself, and one of the reasons why the case is bulkier, as we mentioned earlier. The Hollyland Lark M2 basically has a 10-hour battery life on the transmitters, 9-hour battery life on the 3.5mm dedicated receiver, which effectively gives you about 9 hours of usable battery life if you're using the 3.5mm receiver. But if you're using their dedicated smartphone receiver, which either has a Lightning or USB-C connectivity, that actually gets powered through the smartphone, and with that you can definitely get around the 10-hour mark with the transmitter itself. Now, as far as the limitations go, both these 2 microphones share some common things. They don't offer internal recording capabilities on the receivers themselves, so you're always tied to some sort of camera source to record your audio, in addition to the fact that there's no 32-bit float recording capabilities. So if you want that higher bit rate, higher dynamic range audio recording capabilities, both of these are limited to whatever your camera can record. And lastly, there's no way for independent microphone level control. So if you have 2 transmitters connected, they're going to go up and down in terms of microphone input at the same rate. Now, in terms of range, according to DJI, unobstructed line of sight communication range is up to 400 meters. And on the Hollyland Lark M2 side, you're looking roughly around 300 meters. But let's actually test the real world range. Okay, so what we're gonna do is a little range test between the 2 mics. Right now we're just about roughly 10 feet away from the microphone. We have it both recording at the same time straight into the camera, and we can switch between the two mics to see how they sound. But we're gonna walk a few paces. I'm gonna basically test it at about 100 meters line of sight to see how they sound and how the signal holds up. So let's get walking. Okay, so now I'm gonna start walking. One. Okay, so now we're about 50 meters away from the camera, and we should probably still have a fairly good signal. And let's go double this distance. Okay, so now we're about 100 paces away from the camera, and if we still have good signal quality on both of these, that should be pretty much good for most real life circumstances. Let's do a little more extreme test and walk another 50 paces. Okay, so now we're about 150 paces away from the camera. You probably can't see me right now, but if we still have signal quality, this is pretty much the most extreme test that you're gonna ever face with these two wireless microphones. If we still have a good signal, that means they're doing a good job, but let's keep walking on another. Probably roughly about 200 meters away from the camera. The DJI mic is still working. Super impressed, and if the Lark is working, I'd be fairly impressed. We'll see if they'll come back in. So if you lose the 2.5 gigahertz signal, how far do you have to walk to regain it? So we'll just keep walking. Keep walking. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 10. Now, as you saw from the results, basically at 100 meters, both don't really struggle at all in delivering fairly clean, usable audio. It's only when you get to around a 200 meter mark where they start definitely breaking up. And in most circumstances, in a clear situation like you saw over there, you are going to lose your signal. So I'm not too sure on how you can get 300 or 400 meters of line of sight communication. But based on my experience, I wouldn't go really past 100 meters with both these mics. Okay, so what we're going to do is a little range test through some walls, first starting with the Hollyland Lark M2. We basically have the receiver over here connected to my PC, and it's recording on Reaper through my audio interface. So basically the receiver is going to live right here. We're going to walk down the steps and outside to see how it does in terms of a long distance range test, but through some walls. So now it shouldn't really have too much of a problem. But as soon as we get outside, there might be an issue with the connectivity. So I'm just going to walk out a little bit more outside. And right now, if we still have some sort of signal, that means it's still connected. And we're going to continue walking forward to the main gate. And right now we're about 80 or so feet away from the receiver, up on the second floor of the house, through some couple of different walls. So if we're still good communication through the receiver and transmitter, that means it's doing a good job. If my voice is cutting out, that means we're at the limit of communication through some obstructions. Now we switch over to the DJI Mic Mini. We're recording through the same process. I'm going to walk out through the room and go outside again, down the steps, and we'll see how the range is in terms of going through walls and obstacles. So hopefully we're still connected thus far. Going outside through the main door. And doors closed. We're walking outside to the same point where we did our Lark M2 test, and after reviewing some of the microphone footage, it looks like it was cutting out. So here we're at the exact same position. The receiver's back there, about 80 feet or so. And here is the DJI Mic Mini in terms of a long distance through wall range test. Now moving forward, let's talk about the actual quality of both these two microphones. They're both omnidirectional. We've been switching back and forth between them throughout this entire video, but let's get into a more controlled environment and see how they actually sound in a quiet, isolated situation. This is the DJI Mic Mini in a quiet environment. This is the DJI Mic Mini quiet environment. Noise cancellation is off. This is the Hollyland Lark M2 in a quiet environment. This is the Hollyland Lark M2 in a quiet environment. Now, based on what I can hear, the Lark M2 definitely has some baked-in EQ effect. It has a little dip on the 1K, little top-end boost, as well as a boost around the 80 to 100 hertz to give you more of a bass response. It sounds great, honestly, out of the box, and it's something that I would probably do in terms of processing the audio. The DJI Mini mic is definitely more flatter in terms of its EQ profile, which is great for post-production. May not sound as good just straight out of the box, but some people may like it better. But for me personally, if I wanted to maximize my workflow efficiency, I'd probably go with the Lark M2 out of the box sound. But if you want to do some post-processing, the Mini mic is a little bit optimized for that. Furthermore, in terms of testing out the noise floor, I went into a quiet environment, I talked a little bit, then I went into Adobe Audition. I normalized my talking volume to about minus 20 dBs LUFS, so I have the same volume levels on both audio clips, and then I went to the quiet parts where I'm not talking and just measured the maximum RMS value to get an idea of what the noise floor is. And on the DJI Mini mic, we measured about minus 62 decibels RMS max versus minus 61 decibels in the exact same scenario on the Hollyland Lark M2. Now, this is not obviously a scientific test. We're not using the most highest end audio equipment in terms of recording both these microphones, so you could definitely get a lower noise floor in terms of that circumstance. But in terms of general smartphone or just a general camera that's going through the 3.5mm connection and recording in camera, I think you could expect to see a very similar noise floor on both these microphones. Now, next we're going to do a noise cancellation test in a controlled circumstance. So we're going to play some audio through the speakers back there of a cafe environment, so people talking in the background, and we're going to toggle the noise cancellation in the strong position on and off on both microphones. This is the Hollyland Lark M2 with noise cancellation turned off in a noisy environment. This is the Hollyland Lark M2 in a noisy environment. This is the Hollyland Lark M2 with noise cancellation turned on in the strong setting. This is the Hollyland Lark M2 with noise cancellation turned on in a noisy environment. This is the DJI Mic Mini with noise cancellation off in a noisy environment. This is the DJI Mic Mini in a noisy environment with noise cancellation turned off. This is the DJI Mic Mini with noise cancellation turned on in a noisy environment. This is the DJI Mic Mini with noise cancellation turned on in the strong setting in a noisy environment. Now, based on our measurements using Adobe Audition, we measured around a 6 decibel reduction in terms of noise levels in the strong position on the M2 versus 9 decibel reduction on the DJI. Now, I do have to say that there are some trade-offs of using a noise cancellation that's a little bit more aggressive. You're going to introduce some artifacts, and that's exactly what we're hearing. The DJI sounds a little bit more underwatery. It has that kind of weird squirrely effect that happens with aggressive noise cancellation. And the Hollyland Lark M2 sounds a little bit more natural with less of those weird gating issues between speech. It just doesn't sound like you're underwater as much, but you don't get as much reduction in terms of noise. But I think I prefer the sound or the noise cancellation algorithm that Hollyland is using compared to DJI. That's my personal opinion, and you can obviously set the DJI to a lower level to match it, but if you're going to use it in the strong position, I think the Hollyland sounds a little bit better. Now, to sum up everything we've talked about, let's go through the pros of each microphone. Starting with the Hollyland Lark M2. Certainly has the best overall design and form factor, and the DJI is not really taking that crown based on what I've experienced thus far. It's lighter, it's obviously thinner, and fits better onto most people's t-shirt or apparel, whatever they're wearing, and that is actually a pretty big deal from an everyday usability standpoint. I also like the out-of-the-box sound of the microphone. Certainly you can make the DJI sound more similar to the Lark M2, but if you want a sound that's ready to produce, it provides a pretty broadcast-friendly sound straight out of the box. And lastly, even though the DJI has stronger noise cancellation capabilities, I think the algorithm and the way that the Hollyland cancels noise sounds a little bit more natural, even though you're not going to be reducing as much noise. But if you're going to use it, I think it's a little bit more usable and personally prefer it compared to the DJI mic. Furthermore, in terms of the pros of the DJI Mini Mic, I think there's quite a few. Firstly, it has a more robust signal, especially if you're going through walls and things like that. Line of sight is fairly similar, but as we encountered, the robust nature of the receiver to transmitter connection is quite good, especially even through walls. Furthermore, you do get also slightly better battery life with both the transmitter and receiver, in addition to having more capacity on the charging case, so you're going to get a longer runtime, shoot time with the DJI system compared to the Hollyland. Furthermore, a big highlight for me is the fact that the receiver has auto on and off, even using the 3.5mm connection. You don't need to be connected to a DJI camera to benefit from that, which is great since I'm always forgetting to turn off my microphones when I'm done with them and always forget to turn off my receiver. So that's definitely very, very handy. Lastly, probably the biggest advantage on the DJI side is going to be price. When you get the one transmitter and one receiver combo, you only are getting the system for under $90. That's pretty remarkable. It's a new low for the industry, and unfortunately Hollyland for the M2 doesn't bundle up one receiver and one microphone combination at this point. If they do, I'm sure they can pretty much match or if not beat the price. But for the time being, the DJI has the lower entry price. Now, in summary, if you were to ask me which mic I would actually pick, I'd probably go with the Hollyland. I like the overall design and form factor. It's super easy to use. And the fact that it sounds great out of the box, it's going to save some time in terms of post-production. I personally like that aspect of the microphone of not using too aggressive of a noise cancellation feature. I'd probably turn noise cancellation off most of the time if I'm using the DJI. Some people might disagree with that, and some people may actually prefer the sound of the DJI as well. But for me personally, I'd probably pay the extra amount and get the combo unit for $120 to $180, whatever it goes for on Amazon. But as a standalone system with one microphone, one receiver, or even the dual microphone combo unit, which is about $169 on the DJI Mini Mic side, you're getting quite a bit of microphone for the money, and it'd be quite hard to justify even getting a DJI mic first generation or even a mic 2 in that circumstance. But definitely love to know what you guys think is the best overall wireless microphone for the price right now. Which one would you actually pick between these two? If you have any specific questions, definitely let me know. Give us a thumbs up if you haven't done so already. And thank you so much for watching. We'll see you real soon in the next one. Take care. Bye-bye.